At 52, I was convinced my love life had officially closed for business. My friends were all about grandkids and retirement trips with their husbands. And me, I was divorced, living in this quiet little coastal town, trying to rebrand loneliness as peace. It wasn't really working. Then one evening, with the sky blushing all shades of pink, she appeared. Lena. She'd just moved into the cottage next door, a painter in her late 30s who seemed to be made of pure energy and laughter. Her clothes were a Jackson Pollock of paint splatters, and her smile. It could make a rainy day feel like sunshine. Our first meeting was a classic rom-com cliché. Her dog, a furry little hurricane, bulldozed its way into my garden and took out half my petunias. "Oh my God, I am so sorry," she said, rushing over to assess the floral carnage. I was ready to be annoyed. I really was. But then I looked up at her, flustered and genuinely apologetic, and the anger just fizzled out. There was something so vibrant about her, something that made me feel like I wasn't just part of the scenery. I felt seen. After the great Petunia massacre of that year, she became a fixture in my life. Those simple good morning chats over the fence slowly blossomed into these deep, wandering conversations about art, life, and the weird, bittersweet comfort of getting older. She'd wave me over while she was painting, a paintbrush tucked behind her ear, offering me tea and asking for my opinion on her latest canvas. I'd just sit there, completely captivated, not just by the explosions of color on her canvas, but by the sheer light in her eyes when she talked about her passion. One night, we took a bottle of wine down to the shore. The waves crashed and receded, a steady rhythm filling the comfortable silence between us. Maybe it was the wine or the magic of the ocean, but I found myself telling her things I'd never said out loud. I told her how I'd spent my entire life playing a part, the dutiful daughter, the perfect wife, the loving mother. I did everything that was expected of me. I married a man, raised a family, and built a life that looked perfect from the outside. But deep down, in the quietest parts of my heart, I always felt different. Like I was reading from someone else's script. She listened without interrupting, her eyes fixed on the horizon. When I finally ran out of words, she asked so softly, "And now?" The question hung in the salty air. "Now," I said, the words feeling heavy, "I think it's too late." Too late for love. Especially the kind of love I never even had the courage to want. She turned to me, a faint, knowing smile on her lips. "You're wrong," she said. "Love doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't have a deadline. It just waits. It waits until you're finally ready to see it." Her words echoed in my mind for days. Weeks turned into a month, and something delicate and unspoken started to bloom between us. It was in the small things, the way her hand would brush against mine when she passed me a cup of tea, the way our eyes would meet and hold for just a second too long. And every single time she laughed that full-hearted, uninhibited laugh, my own heart would do this little traitorous flip. Then came a stormy evening. The rain was coming down in sheets, and the wind was howling like a lonely ghost. Suddenly, there was a frantic knock on my door. It was Lena, drenched from head to toe, shivering. "The power's out," she said, her teeth chattering. Can I hang out here until it comes back on?" Of course, I said yes. We lit some candles, wrapped ourselves in the thickest blankets I owned, and just talked. We talked about everything. Her wildest dreams of painting the northern lights, my deepest regrets about the years I'd spent pretending. I told her about the woman I could have been, the one I'd locked away. In the flickering candlelight, her expression was serious, her gaze incredibly bold. "If you could go back," she asked, her voice barely a whisper, "would you live it all the same way?" I had to swallow the lump in my throat. "No," I whispered back, the admission feeling both terrifying and freeing. "I think I would have chosen her." Her eyes softened with a look of such profound understanding. "Then maybe," she said, her voice gentle, "it's not too late to start now." And just like that, the space between us, which had been charged with unspoken feelings for weeks, simply vanished. Her hand came up to cup my face, and her lips met mine. It was soft, a little uncertain at first, but it was so real. In that moment, for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't too old. I wasn't anyone's ex-wife or mother. I was just me. And I was feeling everything. A while later, the lights flickered and then hummed back to life, flooding the room with a sudden, harsh brightness. Lena pulled back slightly, a playful glint in her eyes. "So," she said, a little tease in her voice, "when you're 52, will you marry a woman?" I laughed. A real, genuine laugh that came from my soul, even as tears streamed down my face. "If she's anything like you," I managed to say. "Absolutely." And now, here we are. Months later, standing by that same sea, but we're not just neighbors anymore. We're something so much more. Our hands are intertwined, and our laughter gets carried away by the wind. People still give us looks. And I'm sure some of them whisper, wondering if I'm not a little too old for this kind of new beginning. But I just smile, because I finally know the truth. Love doesn't check your birth certificate. It doesn't care about the number of candles on your cake. All it checks is whether your heart is still open. And mine, after 52 long years, finally is sometimes the love you've been waiting for. Doesn't tea arrive on a white horse or on a schedule? Sometimes it just shows up in the garden next door with a little paint on its hands and a whole universe of hope in its smile. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories about finding love and happiness no matter what your age. See you next time.